Welcome back to Totally Pointless. I am JT. And I am TJ. This week, we're diving into some serious drama brewing in Canadian politics. A listener wants to understand why some NDP supporters are calling on Jagmeet Singh to vote down the Liberal government. It's a tangled web, but luckily we've got an expert to help us sort it all out. But first, a huge shout out to this week's sponsor, Payment Solutions. They're helping business owners just like you save money on processing fees. So be sure to check them out at paymin.com. Now, back to the political roller coaster. Okay, so you've been digging into this. What's the backstory here? Why are some NDP supporters so fired up?
Well, it all starts with this petition. It's signed by over 500 people connected to the NDP, including former party staffers who worked with big names like Jack Layton and Tom Mulcair. One of the organizers, Julian Newman, actually served as a senior advisor to Jack Layton. So we're not talking about fringe voices here. These are people deeply embedded in the NDP.
Wow, so these are folks who know the inner workings of the party. What are their main concerns? Why are they so unhappy with the Liberals?
The petition pulls no punches. It straight up calls the Trudeau government one of the worst in Canadian history. They point to the potential for a trade war with the United States as evidence of the Liberals' incompetence on the world stage. And they argue that the government is just in complete disarray, unable to effectively represent Canada.
So they're basically saying the Liberals are a sinking ship, and the NDP needs to jump off before it's too late.
Exactly. They believe that continuing to support the Liberals is actively harming Canada's interests. What's interesting here is that this discontent isn't just about policy disagreements. It's about a perceived lack of leadership and a sense that Singh isn't standing up for what they believe in.
But hasn't Singh already said he's going to vote non-confidence in Trudeau? Didn't he make a big show of tearing up that coalition deal?
He did. But that's where things get really interesting. See, Singh has made similar pronouncements before, and yet his actions haven't always matched his words. It's created a sense of distrust, even among some of his own supporters. They're starting to wonder if he can be taken at his word.
Okay, give us the receipts. What are some examples of this mismatch between words and actions?
Well, back in September, Singh very publicly ripped up the coalition deal he had with Trudeau. It's all over the news. And it seemed like the NDP was done playing nice. But then, between September and December, the NDP actually voted to support the Liberals 8 times.
Hold on. He ripped up the deal but kept voting with them. That's confusing.
It definitely raised some eyebrows. And then, right before the House went on Christmas break, Singh released a letter to Canadians, where he declared, once again, his intention to bring down the government. It's been a bit of a political roller coaster, leaving everyone wondering what his endgame really is.
So what's the deal? Is he playing some kind of 4D chess here, or is this just a case of flip-flopping? I mean, it's hard to see how he can maintain credibility if he keeps saying one thing and doing another.
That's the million-dollar question. Is this calculated strategy or indecision? It's hard to say for sure, but what's clear is that this inconsistency is fueling the frustration among those NDP supporters who signed the petition. They feel like their concerns aren't being taken seriously and that Singh is prioritizing political maneuvering over their values.
So what happens next? Is the government actually in danger of falling?
The Conservatives are definitely trying to make that happen. They're attempting to force a non-confidence vote through the Commons Public Accounts Committee. It's a bit of a procedural maneuver. But if they manage to get their motion through the committee next week, it could trigger a non-confidence vote in the full House of Commons on January 27th, with a final vote on January 30th.
So potentially a very dramatic end to January. But I have to ask, is this even going to work? It seems like a long shot.
It's definitely a gamble. And here's where things get even more complicated. There's actually a precedent for this kind of situation, but it doesn't bode well for the Conservatives. Back in 2005, a similar situation arose with the Martin government. A majority of MPs on a committee voted to add a non-confidence clause to a report. But the government simply ignored it, claiming it was illegitimate.
So even if the Conservatives pull this off in the committee, the Liberals might just shrug it off.
That's a real possibility. However, there are some key differences between the current situation and the 2005 example, which makes this a much more difficult situation for the Liberals to simply ignore.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What are the differences this time around?
In 2005, the non-confidence vote was sort of tacked onto a committee report, not a direct statement of no confidence. This time, the committee would be directly declaring that they've lost confidence in the government. It's a much more straightforward challenge. And it would be much harder for the Liberals to argue that they still have the support of the House if both the committee and the full House vote against them, especially with the NDP seemingly turning against them.
So this could be a high-stakes gamble for everyone involved. If the NDP votes with the Conservatives and the motion passes, it could trigger a snap election, something neither party might be fully prepared for.
It's a real possibility. And of course, the big question hanging over all of this is, will Jagmeet Singh actually follow through this time? His own supporters are watching closely, and many of them seem to be losing faith.
It's a political thriller unfolding right before our eyes. This is all incredibly fascinating. But I have to ask, what does it all mean for the average Canadian? Why should they care about this political maneuvering?
That's a great question. At its core, this is about trust and representation. Canadians need to know that the people they elect will keep their promises and act in the best interests of the country. When politicians say one thing and do another, it erodes that trust and raises questions about the effectiveness of our political system. It makes you wonder if the system is truly reflecting the will of the people.
It also highlights the importance of paying attention to what politicians actually do, not just what they say.
Exactly. Words are easy, actions speak louder. And in this case, Singh's actions have been sending mixed signals, leaving both his supporters and the broader public wondering where he truly stands. It's no wonder some NDP supporters are feeling disillusioned.
So what should we be watching for as this story unfolds? What are the key things to keep in mind?
First and foremost, keep an eye on that committee meeting next week. If the Conservatives manage to get their non-confidence motion through, it'll set the stage for a dramatic showdown in the House of Commons.
That's definitely going to be a nail-biter.
It will be. Also, pay attention to how the NDP votes on any confidence-related motions, both in the committee and in the full House. Will they finally side with the Conservatives and risk triggering an election? Or will they continue to prop up the Liberals despite their stated objections? And will Singh be able to provide a clear and consistent explanation for his actions? That's key. He needs to articulate a clear vision for the NDP and explain how his actions are aligned with that vision. Otherwise, he risks further alienating his base and losing the trust of the Canadian people.
Well, Canadian politics just got a whole lot more interesting. This whole situation has thrown a wrench into the works, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll delve into some of the specific concerns raised by the NDP supporters who signed that petition. Have they completely lost faith in their leader? And what does this whole situation tell us about the state of Canadian politics? Stay tuned. All right, so we've set the stage, but now let's zoom in on those NDP supporters who signed the petition. What exactly are they saying? What's fueling their frustration?
One of the most striking things about the petition is the sheer depth of disillusionment with Singh's leadership. Many of the signatories express a profound disappointment that he hasn't been more forceful in challenging the Liberals.
So they feel like he's not living up to his promises, not walking the walk.
Exactly. They see him as too willing to compromise, not willing to take the tough stands that they believe are necessary to push for real change. Some even argue that he's compromising on core NDP values just to maintain a semblance of power.
But isn't compromise kind of baked into the cake when you're dealing with a minority government? You can't always get everything you want.
That's true. But the signatories seem to feel that Singh has crossed a line. It's not just about pragmatic compromises. It's about what they perceive as a betrayal of the NDP's core principles and ideals.
So they're basically saying he's chosen political expediency over genuine commitment to the NDP's vision.
That's a pretty accurate way to put it. And it's important to note that this isn't the first time Singh has faced this kind of criticism from within his own party. There's been a simmering undercurrent of discontent for a while now, with some accusing him of being too cautious, too centrist, not sufficiently committed to the NDP's traditional left-wing roots.
So this petition is like the boiling point, a culmination of all those simmering frustrations.
You could say that. It's a sign that a significant portion of NDP supporters are losing patience with Singh's approach. They're demanding a more assertive, more confrontational stance, even if it means risking an election.
So what are they actually hoping to achieve by calling for Singh to withdraw support for the Liberals? What's the end game here?
That's a great question. And honestly, there are probably a few different motivations at play here. Some signatories might genuinely believe that triggering a snap election is the best course of action. They might think Canadians are ready for a change, and that the NDP is well-positioned to capitalize on the current political climate.
So they might be thinking that this is their chance to seize the moment, to make a power play.
It's possible. Others might not necessarily want to topple the government, but they do want to send a shockwave through the system, a message that the NDP's concerns can no longer be ignored.
So it's not necessarily about bringing down the House, but about shaking things up, forcing the Liberals to take them more seriously.
Exactly. They might believe that by playing hardball, by withdrawing support, they can exert more leverage. force the Liberals to make concessions on crucial issues like healthcare, climate change, or social programs.
So it's a high-stakes game of political poker,
Yeah.
with the NDP trying to increase their bargaining power.
Precisely. But as with any high-stakes game, there's a lot of risk involved. If they overplay their hand, they could end up triggering an election they're not prepared for, or alienate voters who see them as being obstructionist and irresponsible. It's a delicate balance.
So there's a lot riding on Singh's decisions in the coming days and weeks. He's walking a tightrope, trying to appease his base without derailing the entire political landscape.
He is indeed. He's facing pressure from within his own party, from the opposition, and from the broader public. He needs to find a way to navigate these competing pressures while staying true to his principles and representing the interests of his constituents. It's a leadership test unlike any other he's faced before.
Okay, so we've talked about the petition, the political maneuvering, but let's take a step back and consider the bigger picture. What does this whole NDP Liberal saga tell us about the state of Canadian politics today? What are the broader implications?
What's fascinating to me is how this situation really exposes the inherent tensions and contradictions of minority governments. On the surface, it seems like a simple question. Should the NDP support the Liberals or not? But when you dig deeper, you realize that it's about so much more than that.
It's about power strategy, ideology,
Yeah.
and ultimately about what kind of country we want to live in.
Exactly. The NDP is caught between competing priorities, staying true to their principles, maintaining their influence, and avoiding an election they might not win. It's a delicate balancing act. And it's forcing them to make tough choices that could have ripple effects for years to come.
And those choices will have real consequences, not just for the NDP, but for all Canadians.
Absolutely. This isn't just a game of political chess. It's about the future of our country. The decisions made in the coming weeks could have a profound impact on our economy, our healthcare system, our environment, and our place in the world.
This is all incredibly insightful. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
Anytime. It's what we do here at the Deep Dive, taking those complex issues, those tangled knots of information,
Yep.
and trying to unravel them, make sense of it all, connect the dots.
Speaking of making sense of things,
Yeah.
I think it's time to circle back to one of the big questions we started with. Will Singh actually follow through this time? Will he vote to bring down the government? Or will he find another reason to support the Liberals? What's your gut feeling?
Honestly, it's anyone's guess at this point. He's under immense pressure, and his decisions in the coming weeks will have major consequences. He's at a crossroads. And which path he chooses will determine not only his own political future, but potentially the direction of the country as a whole.
So much suspense.
Yeah.
It's like we're watching a political thriller in real time.
It really is. And as we watch this drama unfold, it's important to remember that we, the Canadian people, have a role to play as well. We need to stay informed, engage in thoughtful debate, and hold our elected officials accountable for their actions.
This isn't just a spectator sport. It's about our collective future.
Exactly. And that's what the Deep Dive is all about, empowering you, our listeners, with the knowledge and insights you need to be active and engaged citizens. We don't just want to give you information. We want to spark a conversation, get you thinking critically about the complexities of the world around us.
Because at the end of the day, informed citizens are the bedrock of a healthy democracy.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, we've covered a lot of ground today. The petition, the potential non-confidence vote, the history of minority governments, the role of smaller parties. But before we wrap things up, we want to leave you with something to ponder, a question to keep those mental gears turning.
A little cliffhanger to keep you coming back for more.
We've talked a lot about Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, but what about the Liberals? What does this situation tell us about the state of the Liberal Party? Are they truly vulnerable? And if so, what are the implications for the next election? Food for thought, my friends.
It's like we're handing you the keys to the political puzzle box. Now it's up to you to connect the dots. Make those crucial inferences.
And that's where the real deep dive begins, within your own minds.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to.
All right, we're back and ready to tackle that final piece of the puzzle. The Liberals. What does this whole NDP rebellion tell us about the state of the Liberal Party? Are they actually in trouble here? It's definitely a sign that the ground is shifting beneath their feet. For a long time, they've been able to rely on the NDP's support to stay in power. But now that support is looking shaky at best. This petition and the potential non-confidence vote it could lead to are a wake-up call. They can't take the NDP for granted anymore.
So you're saying this isn't just a minor annoyance for the Liberals, it's a potential existential threat.
It could be. It exposes a fundamental vulnerability in their position. If they lose the NDP's confidence, they have very few options for staying in power. A snap election is a risky proposition for any party, but especially for one that's facing internal divisions and declining popularity.
Speaking of declining popularity, are the Liberals really that unpopular right now? It seems like just yesterday they were the darlings of Canadian politics.
Well, honeymoons don't last forever in politics. Governing is hard. And even the most charismatic leaders eventually face wear and tear. The Trudeau government has been in power for a while now, and they've accumulated their share of baggage. There's a sense among some voters that they've lost their way, that they're more focused on style than substance.
So are you saying that Trudeau 2.0 is officially over?
It's definitely lost some of its luster. The shine has worn off a bit. They're facing criticism from both the left and the right. The left feels like they haven't delivered on their progressive promises, while the right sees them as fiscally irresponsible and out of touch with everyday Canadians.
So they're caught in a pincer movement, squeezed from both sides.
Exactly. And this NDP situation is throwing fuel on the fire. It's giving their opponents ammunition and making them look weak and indecisive.
So what does this mean for the next election? Are the Liberals headed for defeat?
It's too early to say for sure. Elections are unpredictable beasts, and a lot can happen between now and then. But one thing is certain. The Liberals are going to have to fight tooth and nail to hold on to power. They can't afford to be complacent. They need to re-energize their base, reconnect with disillusioned voters, and articulate a clear vision for the future.
So it's a wake-up call, a chance for them to either step up their game or face the consequences.
Precisely. This is a pivotal moment for the Liberal Party, and how they respond will determine their fate.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from a petition signed by a few hundred NDP supporters to the potential downfall of the Liberal government. It's amazing how these seemingly small events can have such huge implications.
It just goes to show that politics is a dynamic and ever-changing landscape. What seems insignificant today could become a major turning point tomorrow.
And it highlights the importance of staying informed, engaging in critical thinking, and making your voice heard in the democratic process.
Couldn't agree more. The deep dive is all about empowering you, our listeners, to be active and engaged citizens. We want to give you the tools you need to understand the complexities of the world around you, to form your own opinions, and to participate in the crucial conversations shaping our society.
We don't have all the answers, but we believe in the power of asking the right questions, of digging deeper, of challenging assumptions.
Because that's how we learn, how we grow, and how we create a better future together.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Canadian politics. We hope you found it informative, engaging, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
We always appreciate you tuning in and joining us on this journey of exploration and discovery.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Totally Pointless, wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to check out our show notes for links to all the sources we discussed today.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and keep diving deep.